Yo, what up, everybody? We are back again. This time we are drawing Shakira, which comes from a meme that I saw 2 days ago. I wish I could take credit for it, but I cannot. Thought the idea was really cool, so I figured I'll whip up a drawing of it. This video is pretty long. Unfortunately, it's about 20 minutes, and that's only because it took me about 15 hours from start to finish, which, looking back at it, is quite ridiculous. A lot of it probably came from me just staring off into space or not having a game plan going into this thing. So let's talk about this line work here. Okay. Well, I'm on a vector layer, and basically what a vector layer does, it lets you manipulate lines. You can stretch them and move them around without losing any line quality. So it's a really good thing to have. That way you don't have to redraw certain lines 100 times. You can just kind of draw it once and then manipulate it, bend it, and all that kind of stuff like that. Just going in with the belt, some little details. And with this kind of stuff is you're going in there adding extra lines here and there just to give it some depth. Otherwise, everything starts looking pretty flat. Well, I draw kind of flat anyway because, well, if I plan on coloring it, I'll draw it pretty flat. That way I just let the colors kind of build a solid shape. Just more little details here. It's not really a whole lot to talk about, unfortunately. Like I said, I didn't really have a game plan for the overall drawing. I know when I got to her hair, I was like, well, she has curly hair. We're gonna figure that out. How we're gonna tackle that. The gun, the laser cannon, was another issue. Like, my geometry is pretty trash, which you're about to see right now. So it took quite a while in real time to figure this thing out. I mean, if I'd actually put some kind of effort towards my geometry, it probably wouldn't be so bad. It wouldn't have taken 3 hours. But hey, just making sure we get all the perspective right. I think it's still kind of off in certain areas, but I'm not going to draw any attention to it. And I thought maybe her arm was a little too long. It might be too long. But I think I was getting to the point where if I put any more time into this thing, I would never finish it. Okay, we're still sawing away at it here, using a elliptical tool and straight line tool. Basically helps with this gun and any machine type structure, or mechanical structure, I should say. Since they have a lot of straight lines or very even rounded lines, so everything can look very artificial compared to, a human or clothing or anything like that. Trying to figure out how I'm gonna manipulate that hand and get that holster together. I'm going back in with the pencil, trying to get myself a better idea of of my guidelines. And here I went back to try to figure out what was going on with the barrel up there. I kept looking at it and kept bothering me. There might be some ambient noise from my fish tank. Sorry if it's coming through. My computer's right next to my aquarium. All right, moving on. I think it's the battery charger, if I remember correctly, from the movie, for the laser cannon. This one in the back. The pose itself comes from an Akira. I think it's the soundtrack cover art, if I'm not mistaken. And that's basically what the meme was. It was that drawing with Shakira's head slapped on top of it. So I thought it was pretty brilliant. And I really do hate that I didn't come up with that one. There's me trying to finish up that fist, which I hate drawing. I hate drawing clenched fists. They're kind of hard to draw at certain angles. Some more details going into the face. Try to capture her likeness as much as possible. She doesn't have any defining features, I guess you can say. She's just a pretty lady. So you have to be a little more accurate, I guess. You can't use any characteristics of her face to help push the character. All right, now we're getting to the hair portion of it, which, like I said, I didn't really know how I was going to do it. I knew her hair was curly, and I was going to have to somehow figure it out. I spent a lot of time, like I said, staring into space and trying to get an idea of what I was going to do with it. All right, now we're adding some colors in. Basically just doing an outline and then just dropping all the color in at once. And if you remember, Kaneda, basically his suit was just red on red. I was actually going to offset her pants to a different color, but I started thinking in more of a cartoonist or an animator perspective nowadays, where the least amount of colors you use, the better. If you were to recreate this 100 times, you wouldn't want a million different colors in it. So, I mean, it's kind of lazy in a pinup kind of perspective, but at the same time, in a workflow perspective, it's very useful. So I just try to keep a minimal amount of colors to something. Let's see, going back into the laser cannon, which I think is black in the movie, but on the poster it was green. I'm just basically going by the poster, so, or some kind of army desert tan kind of color. All right, skin tone. I think she might be a little too tan, maybe, but I think it might be okay. She's like, what, Colombian, I think, after all. So, okay, little details, lips. All right, here's the hair. I got the idea just kind of block it all in with the blonde color, because basically her, I wouldn't even say it's her foundation color. It's really brunette, but I figure it'd probably be easier to work from the outside in on this case. And here I just kind of threw a whole bunch of brown in just to give me a visual idea of where the stuff needs to go. And then I went back in and did more fine detail work on it. This took an absolute incredibly long time to do. I think I'm having like PTSD just thinking about it right now. There are ways or easier ways for me to do this. I'm pretty sure there is. And I am lazy about trying to figure out how to make my workflow easier. And that's something I need to work on. Because if somebody's paying me for this by my time, it would cost them a fortune. But this is just for me, so take as long as I want to draw something. But at the same time, you do want to improve your workflow. You don't want to spend 15 hours on a single piece when you could have done 3 or 4 in that amount of time. So, all right, now we're getting ready to go into some more detailed color stuff. Right now I'm adding blush to her, I guess you would say like the warmer parts of the body, belly, cheeks, chin, neck, and stuff like that. Now we're going in with some shadow. I usually just use a soft brush, like an airbrush, to give the picture an overall shadow of where all the shadows are going to be, and then I'll go back in with the finer brush for the details. Making sure I keep my light source consistent, which I think it is for the most part. Um, Making sure those shadows are where they need to be, adding creases and wrinkles. That way it helps build depth. You know, um, it's, it's you want to keep it from looking as flat as possible. But at the same time, that's where it starts getting really tedious, and you're adding all this stuff in. There's this tool like the lasso tool, which you can kind of select the area and drop stuff into it. I've seen plenty of artists use those. It makes everything a lot easier. But for me, I find it, I wouldn't say difficult to use, but um, it's this weird disconnect thing with it, and I gotta get over it because I need to start using the lasso tool. It's very, very important, very important tool. I just like coloring it in. I just like brushing it in. I don't know. Um, More little details in the goggles and belt. Little nuance like scratches here and there and stuff like that. You know, just to give the stuff a little more character. And a lot of the stuff that you'll probably never see. Um, well, if I was to print it out and give you a printout copy of it, you can probably pay attention. You know, look at it, look over it. But in most cases, you know, a lot of stuff is just for me. Most people wouldn't even notice unless I point it out or whatever. But it's just for me. That's probably another reason why stuff takes me so long, because I'm in here trying to pull these little details that nobody will see or nobody would care about. But it's just for me. It's little things like that. Going back to the hair, it looks like, well, no, not. I think I got scared. Back to the body and getting that all shaded in. Shadows on the face, especially for females, is tricky, like tricky business. Um, the less is more in female faces. If I can give you any advice, if you want to be an artist or thinking about drawing as a hobby, get good at drawing female faces or just females in general. It's the absolute hardest thing to draw. Um, and cars, females and cars are the hardest things to draw. She has freckles. I popped some freckles in there. Don't know if they came across in the final product of this thing. Um, Back to the hair again. Just trying to, you know, create shapes with the curls and everything, and the shadows and highlights and stuff like that. So without actually drawing each individual curl, um, I laid down the base color, that blonde, and then I went back in with the darker stuff just to build those curls in it. And usually, and lately I should say, I stopped outlining hair and skin in black, just to give it a smoother feel, less artificial feel. Because clothing and stuff like that, and you know, you can outline that stuff in black. It doesn't look bad. It looks great. But I don't know. Lately, I've been getting to the point where I've done outlines for skin, like a darker tone that I would use for their skin to outline their skin, and then hair, you know, darker tone for their hair. It's not nothing new. Doing it forever in the comic book industry, and some of your more prolific artists out there, they do that too. So it's nothing too fancy. Now I'm coming in with a soft light brush, basically just to brighten things up here and there. It's kind of like highlights, but not as harsh. Okay, hitting some of the outside portions of her. Her light source is from her top right, but I also like to hit the shadow sides of her too, just the outlines of it, just to help it pop a little bit more. Adding some of the highlights and shine in the metal pieces, like the belt buckles. Hit the nose. Skin, like I said, trying to go too heavy on too heavy on skin or highlights in general, because you want it to look, I guess you want it to look smooth, or it depends on what kind of art style you're going for, too. Just for my particular art style, um, I like to keep things as smooth as possible. And some of the more cell shaded stuff, you can go heavy on highlights and shadows, and it won't look weird. There's a few areas that I missed in the hair. Going back and making little corrections here and there. And there's no method to any of this stuff either, especially with this hair. When I'm going back looking at it, it's like it looks like I know what I'm doing, but I really don't. I honestly don't. I'll get an idea or have an idea, like, if I try to do this, and we can see if this will work. And then sometimes it works out, and other times it just doesn't. Um, but I think it works out for the most part here. Um, but yeah, that's like, I would say probably 80% of what I do. Like, I don't have a clue what I'm doing until I get until I sit down in this chair and start working on it. Have an idea for it, and it's all about execution, I guess. You sit here until you figure it out. Adding adding some brighter highlights for some of the stuff. I guess the one I had wasn't very bright. I mean, she's wearing leather, so you can kind of go heavy on like white highlights on it, because leather is very shiny surface. So, but if you're wearing like cloth, like or something like that, you really can't do bright highlights on that. All right, now we're almost done. Adding the her name, her little logo, um, which this program I'm using, Clip Studio, isn't the best when it comes to lettering. Photoshop is a lot better than Clip Studio when it comes to lettering. Um, but I made it work. Well, since it wasn't anything too extravagant, I made it work in this program. Didn't have to move over to Photoshop for anything. Probably could have chose a font closer to Akira. I probably could have got Akira's font off the internet. But I just used what I had. I wasn't sure what kind of background I was going to do. I probably should have done some kind of post-apocalyptic background or something like that. But like I said, I think I spent a lot of time already in this thing, so I just kind of went with a rather basic background. I wanted to give her an outer glow, which I still may add. I don't have one on the final product of it, unfortunately. I probably will go back and add it, just because the red on black is a good color combination, but those two colors together are not very pleasing, side by side. Um, you gotta have like you gotta have white in there, or something else to help counter those two colors. All right, I guess a little space background, um, and then I added a little more um, highlights in her pants. Like I said earlier, it is leather. Yeah, I think we're about ready to wrap this thing up here in a second. Um, yeah. Oh. There you have it, Shakira. Thanks for watching.